You've probably seen the headlines. Vietnam's economy is absolutely on fire. The numbers are just staggering. And the growth? It's undeniable. But if you walk the streets of Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh City, you start to hear a very different story. So we're going to dive into this paradox. How can a country be getting so rich while so many of its people feel like they're just trying to keep their heads above water?
First, let's look at the big picture, right? Vietnam's economy recently grew by an incredible 8.02%. And that wasn't just good. That was the fastest growth in the entire ASEAN region. It was the country's highest in 3 years. So on paper, from a bird's eye view, the nation is just crushing it.
And what's fueling this engine? A huge part of it is exports. The value of goods Vietnam shipped out hit a massive $475 billion. That's a 17% jump. You know, from electronics to clothes, the factories were humming and the rest of the world was buying everything Vietnam was making.
Naturally, investors really started to take notice. The stock market had this historic year, rallying almost 58%. This performance was so strong that Vietnam actually got an upgrade from a frontier to an emerging market. That puts it in a whole new league for global investment. The top-line story is just spectacular success.
But this is where the story takes a sharp turn. You step away from the headlines, away from the spreadsheets. And this is the question millions of Vietnamese workers are asking themselves every single day. So, what does this massive boom actually feel like for the average person?
All right, let's do just that. Let's zoom in from that 30,000-foot view right down to the kitchen table. We're going to look at the real monthly budget of an average worker, because this is where that big national success story crashes into personal reality.
So, in the first quarter of this year, the average monthly income for a worker in Vietnam was about 8.3 million dong. That's around $320. Now, that's up 9.5% from last year, which, sounds pretty good. But does that really tell us the whole story?
Well, not really, because that national average is hiding a huge range of experiences. An urban worker in a city might make over 10 million dong, but someone in the agriculture sector, they're earning less than half of that. This gap between the city and the countryside is a really big piece of the puzzle.
So, okay, where is all that money going? Well, for a single worker in a big city like Ho Chi Minh, things get tight fast. Just look at this breakdown. Rent and food, that's almost 70% of their income, gone right off the top. That leaves almost nothing for living.
So after everything is paid, the rent, the food, the gas for the motorbike, the phone bill, what's actually left over to put into savings? Just $15. 15. That is the entire margin for error. One flat tire, one unexpected trip to the doctor, and that money is gone in an instant.
And you can see how this razor-thin margin creates this massive divide, right? The difference between just surviving and actually thriving. So the real question is, who's actually cashing in on this economic boom, and what exactly is holding so many people back?
Yeah, this boom is definitely not lifting all boats equally. If you're a skilled worker, say in tech or finance, or you own your own business, you're probably doing really well. But on the flip side, low-skilled factory workers, people in rural areas, and young families trying to afford a home, they're feeling the squeeze the most. The gap is getting wider.
And there's another really important layer to this, and it's cultural. It's the pressure of family obligations. In Vietnam, it's very common for young workers to send a big chunk of their paycheck home to support their parents. Now, that's an amazing, honorable tradition, but it makes building your own personal savings and getting ahead financially extremely difficult.
Okay, so faced with all these pressures, is there a way forward? And the answer is absolutely yes. But it's not about just waiting for some huge raise. It's about a fundamental shift in your mindset. It's what we like to call the path to wise wealth.
This path really starts with 4 clear, simple steps. First, you've got to know your real numbers. Like, where is every single dollar actually going? Second, you have to consciously decide what enough means for you and then tune out all that social pressure to spend more. Third, build that savings habit, no matter how small you start. And finally, and this is crucial, invest in your single greatest asset, your own skills.
So here are some habits you can start like today. Set up an automatic transfer to your savings the day you get paid. Don't even think about it. Focus your time on skills that have a high return, things like English or a tech certification. Challenge yourself to track every single expense for 1 month just to see where the leaks are. And your first big goal? Build that emergency fund. That is your foundation for freedom. You know, beyond all the tactics and budgets, there's a much deeper principle at play. This ancient wisdom reminds us that true wealth isn't really about how much you can pile up, but about finding contentment. In a world that is screaming at us to compare and consume, choosing to be content is probably the most radical and powerful financial move you can make.
So the paradox of Vietnam's boom is very real. The big economic numbers are impressive for sure, but the squeeze on people's finances is just as real. The path forward isn't just about what the national economy does, it's about the intentional choices you make. So I'll leave you with this to think about. What is one small step you can take this month to start building your own path toward wise wealth?